So, folks, I foolishly committed myself to covering a 2-hour long conversation between a podcaster and YouTuber named Dad Saves America and one WhatIfAltHist. And I, a fool, regret my words and deeds, and am now here to pay the piper. I, without further ado, present to you what is titled Rudyard Lynch on Dating Apps, Moral Decline, and the Risk of Civil War. And the one asterisk I have to put at the beginning here is that this was recorded about 11 months ago. So there's probably going to be some outdated references. And, well, as we begin this almost spiritual journey, just remember.
The spirits like to convey the message that you should mentally see me as Gandalf.
Yeah, and that applies to me. That I am your Gandalf. Here we go.
Rudyard Lynch, welcome to Dad Saves America.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
So, if all goes according to plan, this will be our Thursday episode right before the election. And I figured you are among, I would say, the prognosticators of civil war in the United States.
Okay, yeah, so we're already off to a good start. We're less than a minute in, and we are at, you're a prognosticator of the Civil War.
I am the intellectual equivalent of an assault rifle.
Let's go. Let's fucking go. I'm excited. You know, how could this possibly go wrong?
Wait, how did I never realize the racist idiot's last name is Lynch? Also, his voice hits me like a truck.
I'm not going to touch any aspect of that text-to-speech comment.
But you also are someone who lays out kind of anthropological scale stories about where we are as a civilization. You know, I see a lot of like the fourth turning type of thinking in your stuff. And I first came across you on Chris Williamson's podcast. And so I guess let's start off with, what do you do? What is it that you do?
As I said on the last podcast I was on, I am a 23-year-old with no credentials whose job is betting against God. And so I'll start there. And I'm Rudyard Lynch, and I'm a college.
I'm sorry. I really want him to get interrupted here and like just be like, what does that mean? When you say you bet against God, what does that mean? Because like we know now that like this man literally thinks that he has been to the spirit world and like been to hell and been to heaven, and like if he is talking about betting against God, he might actually mean that literally. Like literally like is engaged in gambling with God.
Dropout. And I started this channel when I was 13. And I started largely out of boredom. And we made a lot of videos, or I made videos about what if the South won World War II and what if the Nazis won the Civil War. And after 7 years of alternate history, I gradually morphed into different kinds of content. And now I make more anthropology and history and philosophy and that kind of content. You could say that the shared idea of all of it is human nature and trying to understand how human nature operates across various contexts. And
I genuinely can't tell you if he mixed those up intentionally or not. I genuinely can't. Whether the Nazis won the Civil War or the South won World War II, I genuinely have no idea.
Einstein said God does not play dice. How do you bet against that?
Well, clearly you bet against Einstein and you win because he's dead.
So I'm known for several different things, one of which, and the thing I've gone for, the podcasts I've been on before, is my prediction from about...
Dude, is this guy a comedian? I can tell you guys... I know that it's going to sound insane, but I can tell you guys with 100% certainty that this man is not a comedian. He's not doing a bit. He has like a 12-hour long manifesto that I've covered, by the way, where he talks about like how he believes that his bloodline is a magical justice bloodline. he believes in some kind of fusion of eugenics and like spiritualism, like kind of esoteric Nazism. And like he has talked extensively about literally going to the spirit world, literally being engaged in spiritual warfare. And like he's not well. He's not a stable individual.
5 different historic models in America's on the verge
There's an entire playlist where I go over all that. So, go for it.
of a crisis like the French Revolution or the 30 Years' War or the Black Death. And there are very significant historic patterns that say that. And I could go on for a bunch of other stuff talking about everything else in my life, but I think that's a solid place to start.
Okay, I'll keep this quick. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell.
One of my favorite things of all time is just seeing how these people do ads.
So that you won't miss more Dad Saves America as our videos come out each week. And it also really helps us because when we reach out to guests, they look at how many subscribers there are to decide if they want to come on and share their ideas. So please subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. And thanks for watching. Now, back to the show.
I was hoping to figure out what kind of sponsorships this guy gets.
Yeah, I think when I first saw some of your stuff, my immediate reaction was a deep skepticism because I'm generally a little skeptical of sort of grand historical narrative structures and pattern recognitions like the Fourth Turning or Ray Dalio's got his, cycles.
You know what? I gotta be honest. This man has cleared the very low bar that I set for him, which is that I didn't think he would have that skepticism. So, that's great. It's nice that he has that skepticism, but I feel like there's going to be a but coming where it's like, but you got me. I have this deep skepticism of like, historical cycles, but you make a compelling case. I feel like that's coming here.
Of the
Fourth Turning is like absolute Nazi bait, by the way. So like when he talks about that, like it being skeptical of it, he's basically like, I'm a little skeptical of this Nazi stuff.
Changing world order, and they seem very low resolution and almost like a tautology. So I guess let's start with like, how do you have any confidence in even entering into these kind of waters? Never mind being a 23-year-old self-taught historian. We can come back to that, but I'm more receptive to that having been a self-taught economist. So I don't mind self-teaching. I think that's fine. But
every time you talk, you use at least one SAT word. You used tautology this time, and you used another one I forgot last time. So when I was in high school, I thought confidence is free, so I can choose to be confident. And on a balance sheet, confidence is better than not being confident. So I decided to be confident. And that's my attitude. So did you ask me why I'm so confident that we're going to have a civil war? Or what is the intellectual...
Hard Times argument has honestly poisoned the discourse.
It really has. And just keep in mind, everybody, the weak men, hard times thing, it's not an argument. Like it was literally thought up by a sci-fi writer.
Doing a hell of a lot of work right there.
Indeed, that Denovian. Like the hard times, weak men, hard times thing. That's all from like a deeply unpopular and not well regarded sci-fi book written by a conservative. So just keep that in mind here, okay?
Journey that led me here.
I guess why do you, even at the level of like almost how to think about problems, why do you have confidence that such a prediction is possible? Instead of just, I don't know what the future holds. The world is complicated.
Because the world is fundamentally unreasonable.
Well, one might think from listening to conservatives that like, oh, the hard men create good times shtick has been around for forever. It's literally from a book from 2010. Like it's that the book was written. It's called Those Who Remain. I don't know if anyone is interested in that particular book, but like I don't know. Just seems like you should probably be aware. Probably be aware that it's not like a great piece of literature. They aren't drawing upon like I don't know. They aren't drawing upon like some kind of like ancient idiom or something.
And expecting it to be reasonable is unreasonable. And so I have confidence as I look back across history, and people have consistently been able to predict the future. And I say that my job is betting against God because it's impossible to predict the totality of the world because everything's connected. So to predict, you have to end up predicting everything in order to predict a very good model of the future because that's just how the world works. And so you're betting against God. You're betting against the totality of the universe. That being said, you do look back over history and you find people who were able to predict the future pretty accurately. And there's this book called Stand on Zanzibar by John Brunner as a brilliant example.
You look back on history, you do find that some people made predictions that were correct. And obviously they knew what they were doing. And it's not that they just kind of bullshitted. They clearly they must have known what they were talking about because they got it right. It could just be that they guessed and then happened to be right.
Example. It was written in like 1968 and it's set in the year 2010. America has its first black president. The world's population is 9 billion. You have nihilistic school shooters. You have the fall of the Soviet Union. China becomes America's new rival. You have
Great news. My leather family and I are protesting tomorrow, and I'm starting mutual aid tonight.
Oh, hell yeah, One-Eyed Heathen. Love to hear that. Let's go!
Of advanced computer technology, you have AirPods, and you have that, and headphones. You have more.
Wow, someone from the 1980s was able to like predict pretty near future like tech trends. That's crazy.
Degeneration, the collapse of religion, and a bunch of other things. They even have a President Obomi, but he's in 2011. But President Obomi is he's president of a country in Africa, and so.
And you know, Obomi is very close to Obama. Ho, 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 ho. You see, they predicted the name of the president of a different country, but, you know, it's kind of like the president of our country. Ho, ho, ho.
Did that, and I thought to myself in high school,
If you run the numbers enough, anybody can guess right. With billions of people making guesses, some crazies might be right.
Exactly. It's a numbers game. But also, like, yeah, if you're going to use any piece of pop culture to predict that predicted like technology far beyond what like actually was possible at the time, like, I don't know, there are a few things you could draw on, right? Like sci-fi in particular would be great. Like Star Trek, and predicted a bunch of different devices that eventually became real, which is pretty cool. But like you can go and like look at different sci-fi works throughout history and find different concepts being, invented essentially. Like one of the first sci-fi books ever written, I forget what it's called here. It's called True History or A True Story. And it was written by Lucian of Samosata. Right? And it's basically about a voyage into the stars where they meet like spider aliens. Basically, it's kind of it was designed to be like a parody of like travelers accounts that were popular at the time. Basically like, oh yeah, you totally traveled to the stars where you met the spider people. Like that's kind of like how it's supposed to come across. But it also, in this act of satire, like became, first of all, one of Lucian's best known works, but also like groundbreaking as one of the first real works of sci-fi that we have available to us. And it's pretty interesting. The plot involves like traveling to other planets, essentially. Here we go. Shortly after leaving the island, they are caught up in a whirlwind and taken to the moon, where they find themselves embroiled in a full-scale war between Endymion, the king of the moon, and Phaethon, the king of the sun, over colonization of the morning star. and their armies include the spider people. Like it's a whole thing. It's literally the first Star War that we have in media. It's pretty cool stuff, right? But like you could be like, look, Lucian predicted spaceships. He predicted planets and planetary bodies. Wow, look at that. Who would have thought? Who would have thought about that? He predicted space combat all the way back in the 2nd century. And it's just kind of like, well, it's not really like that. You know, like, if anything, like that should be the go-to example for him, not some book written in the 1980s.
Author of this book gets so much right. And the conclusion I came to is that he got 2 intellectual proxies down correctly, and he was able to follow that logic. And those 2 were collapse in traditional values and population growth. And I realized those 2 variables account for significantly more of the changes since the 60s than we would believe. And I find with intellectual topics, everything is almost like a spell. And once you can learn the spell, you can break the rules of it. For example,
oh no.
The spirits like to convey the message that you should mentally see me as Gandalf.
You see, knowing things is like magic is a hell of a take. But by knowing the spell, you can break reality. I mean, you could just know things. By knowing things, you can manipulate reality. Like that's not magic. That's just knowledge. That's why people say knowledge is power, man. Is this man talking about magic spells? This man is talking about magic spells. Also, totally unrelated, but as long as we are kind of doing this content, did you guys know like how Dungeons and Dragons initially conceived of like magic spells for wizards? I find it one of the most fascinating ideas where like essentially in Dungeons and Dragons, magic spells are effectively creatures. They are like knowledge-based creatures. Like by learning them, you essentially trap them in your mind. And then when a wizard casts the spell that they have memorized, the spell is literally released from their mind and they no longer know the spell. Like it by learning the spell and rereading the scroll and memorizing it, they can then re-trap a similar type of creature. And that's really cool. That's such a cool concept for how magic could work in a fantasy setting, and I've always been fascinated by it. But I get the feeling Rudyard's not talking about magic in this way. You know, it's much more fun to talk about D&D magic, though. So it's Pokemon, kind of. Yeah, but if Pokemon were only an idea, you know. Yeah, Vancian magic. Yeah, midweek gold.
Sounds
you
like
understand?
some tales from Earthsea type stuff.
Yeah, no, it's very similar, Nathan. Like Atheris or Atheris 01 kind of gets it. It's like a mimetic life form, like something that spreads via just knowledge of it. It's very, very cool stuff. And I feel like there are so many storytelling possibilities with concepts like that. It gets me really excited as, you know, someone who likes writing fantasy settings.
Medicine. If you were to tell someone 200 years ago, actually 200 years ago, they'd get it. 400 years ago, you'd say, we basically got rid of malaria. We basically got, at least in America, we got rid of malaria, dengue fever, polio, all these illnesses. And you would say, they'd say, how do you do that? That's incredible. You would say, we studied them. We found that there's these little, basically spirits. And then you can use soap and other types of disinfectant.
No, they're not. They're not fucking spirits, man. They're genuinely little tiny creatures that get inside your body and fuck you up. Like, this germ theory isn't magic. It's not magic. No. Jesus Christ. God.
Infectants and other types of medicines to wipe out these illnesses. So the world is comprehensible and you can find ways to deal with it. And
the world becomes more comprehensible if you just attribute everything to magic, for sure. Yeah.
the modern world is testament to that. There should not be a large population in Florida because it used to all be swamp. We found a way to drain the swamp.
So I think one of the things that
you drain the swamp with magic. The
Rudyard
swamp
literally
magic.
calling vaccines magic is somehow still better than RFK Jr.
It is, but, you know, I get the feeling Rudyard is probably... Yeah, well, you know, Rudyard might be pro-vaccine. I genuinely have no idea. There's no way to predict any of his actual political stances.
I sometimes...
Well, no, there is. He's deeply, deeply conservative. But, like, when it comes to health issues, I'm genuinely unsure.
The way I will think about these things, about the future and about... is that there's certain kinds of problems that are complicated.
Yeah.
And then there's certain kinds of problems that are complex. Now, this is semantics, so I'll define what I mean by that. And this is not my approach. I'm borrowing it from somebody.
Yeah.
I don't remember who. But that complex problems are more like chaos theory type problems.
Yes.
They're problems that have thousands or millions or billions of variables all in dynamic, constant movement. And so understanding where they're going to head is like understanding where a flock of birds is going to go.
Yeah.
It's not totally impossible. It's just very low resolution at best.
Yeah.
Then there's complicated problems, which is like trying to get a rocket to be caught by two metal chopsticks.
Yeah.
Like Elon just did this past week.
God, these people are really lame. Like chaos theory is literally the way that science studies and understands chaotic and hard to predict events. Dude, making this distinction doesn't make sense.
Which is huge.
Elon did what? I mean, Elon played a lot of Diablo, or paid someone to play a lot of Diablo. Like he wasn't doing that. He didn't do that himself.
Number of variables, but all basically inanimate objects that are responding to the laws of physics and can be modeled in a computer with math. So the weather is an example of the former. Like
you can also model animal behavior with math. You can do that with a computer, though. You could do it in both cases.
We can't predict the weather more than like 48 hours at best.
Yes.
But
didn't he do both? He did both, Yari Nidaze. He cheated at Path of Exile and got caught, and then he was doing some wonky stuff with Diablo 4.
Human activity I would think, is mostly in the latter category. So do you think about it that way, or do you think, no, actually that's not the right way to think about it?
I think that's accurate. I'm very careful about what I do and don't predict because, for example, I've never had a pretension to understanding AI, and I will never issue an opinion on AI until my frame of either one of the two things happen. There's something that's completely obvious for the direction of AI that I as a layperson can see, or if I spend a tremendous amount of time studying that field. And so a lot of stuff I refuse to have opinions on. I refuse to have opinions on Europe for the near future because I don't know enough about their political context. I am confident for the Civil War in America, which is why...
America's definitely going to have a civil war this time. I know I said America was going to have a civil war 8 years ago, but it's definitely still happening.
I've gone on so many podcasts. That's why I have a $1,000 bet with Andrew Heaton that there will be 1,000 deaths by April.
Which I really don't want to be true.
Well, that didn't happen. I hope he paid that $1,000 that he owes.
You know, this show's called Dad Saves America because I want America to continue to exist, and I think it deserves to be saved from its depravity and its disasters. So let's get into, I want to somewhat bookend our conversation around your hypothesis here, because I think in the middle of it, there's a bunch of stuff I want to talk to you about that I think is really interesting, to me at least. But okay, lay out the historical reason why you think shots fired in America by...
Oh my God, yes,
please. Imagine being the biggest nerd, but also not knowing any facts about any subject you won't shut up about.
What's crazy is that he claims to have read so many different books on these subjects, but like all of the books are like either horribly out of date or written by like Nazis, like, or both, you know? So it's and I know this might be a deep cut, but it's kind of like watching an intellectual version of the character Wimp Lo from Kung Pao Enter the Fist. Someone who it's like watching someone who has been trained wrong on purpose as a joke. Like that's kind of how I feel watching this man. Except that the thing that distinguishes him is that billionaires actually pay attention to what this man says. Powerful people actually give a shit.
Hormones are magic. You take the titty juice, you get the titty. In this way, you are a powerful sorceress.
Yes, I'm a titty sorceress. It's true. I've used the foul breast magic to a forbidden art.
April. And what could be called a civil war. Why, what's the patterns that line up in history that say this, we're on the precipice?
I use a combination of intuition and empiricism, and I'll explain that.
Can I just say how, like, it's insane that right off the bat, he's like, yeah, I trust my gut. My gut is telling me there's a civil war coming. You know, titty sorcerers go hard, though. That's when you know that they're serious. God. So Riverboat Jack, my father was telling me some BS about Trump having the Navy stationed offshore in California, poised to attack during the protests tomorrow. Have you heard anything for where that nonsense may have come from? Genuinely, it could have come from anywhere on the far right. We had someone in chat earlier today talking about how Europe had fallen to like the left-leaning hordes who were just snagging people off the streets in Italy, and it's just like that's not happening. The things that conservatives worry about are literally just not happening.
I spent so many years confused about intuition before I learned that it was basically code for I made it up.
Exactly, Nomi Sunrider. Exactly. There's no there. Like, the Navy isn't poised to attack tomorrow. It's like what conservatives did, 20 years ago, and they were like, oh yeah, FEMA's gonna build hobbit homes and force people to live in them, and like it's good. They're gonna dig holes in the ground and force conservatives to live in the holes in the ground, and like that didn't happen, and it wasn't gonna happen. And like the Navy is present off the shore of California, but that's because the Navy is present off of basically every shore in America.
Rudyard's amount of insane BS per second cannot be matched. Civil War, actual magic, it never ends.
It's true. Rudyard just, part of what you have to understand about him is that you just can't keep up with him because
I am the intellectual equivalent of an assault rifle.
He's just too fast. He's firing off high level ideas at a rate unmatched by even our most advanced caliber of Dave Rubin.
I cast Mel's magnificent memories at 3rd level.
Oh fuck. Oh god. God.
Through both. On the empirical side, I've studied about 5 different historic models, which all say that America will have a civil war in the 2020s, or a large war in the 2020s, depends on the model. And for all of these, except for one of them, they stem back to the 20th century. So this is a completely different era. Even the most recent one, Peter Turchin's, he called it in 2010. 2010's a very different world. Saying that we'll have a civil war in the 2020s and 2010 requires a lot of balls. And
does it? Because like you could just say things.
Is it just me, or does Rudyard look like Yahtzee had a severe allergic reaction to a peanut?
Oh no!
Somebody will get this. BWA.
God.
I put on my robe and wizard's hat.
Oh, hell yeah, Lady Ringcloud, let's go! The classic memes, the ancient magics. I
cast Biggest Tookus at 3rd level.
Well, it is the aftermath of the Great Recession.
Three different worlds. The most recent one, Peter Turchin's, he called it in 2010. 2010's a very different world. Saying that we'll have a civil war in the 2020s and 2010 requires a lot of balls.
I just have to really reiterate here, it doesn't. You can literally predict anything at any time for literally no reason whatsoever. Here, I'll do it. I predict that in the year 2040, we will get like a technology that is based entirely on cupcakes. It's a cupcake technology. You know, you want to call your mom, you press a cupcake. You want to email someone, you eat that cupcake. You want to drive a car, you get in a gigantic cupcake, motherfucker. There we go. I just made a prediction. It did not take massive balls to do it. You can, in fact, just say things and then go about with your day. The muffin button. Look, we are not far enough advanced in this conversation to talk about of course, the pending civil war in the 2030s between the muffins and the cupcakes. Okay, you guys haven't arrived at a high enough intellectual level to engage with that idea yet. Okay, we'll get there when we get there, folks.
And
well, it is the aftermath of the Great Recession.
You laugh, but I'm deep into high-tech cupcake development using nanoparticles and holograms. Big shit going on.
Recession and the rise of the Occupy movement.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things that are like, we're not in the Great Moderation anymore.
yes,
Right?
no one in this room would have guessed that, though.
Fair.
Probably of the people watching, I would guess, I don't know, like 15.
But the Knifeiest duck, Rudyard isn't wearing a fedora. I'm pretty sure Yahtzee had his surgically attached to his head.
Oh, are you telling me this man wouldn't wear a fedora? You telling me that this man's go-to hat isn't a fedora?
Chat, I am a wizard, and I will cast summon MILFs in your area at the protest tomorrow.
That's right. In every corner of America, MILFs will be summoned. It is the highest level of MILF summoning spell that Paladin Lost is capable of.
Would have thought that we'd have a civil war in the 2020s. And those people are probably the schizo Alex Jones types who just say stuff and some of it happens to be correct.
Yeah, some of them are definitely like that, my man.
New tech, I slam my peneth in the car door and cast fireball.
You know, we should really make nuclear weapons work that way. You know? If you know, in order to fire the nuclear weapons, you got to slam your penis in the car door. It's the only way the technology will work. Oh, fuck.
Alex Jones is not a prophet. He just says a lot of stuff. And some of it turned out to be accurate. Right.
Yeah, totally no parallels to anyone else in this conversation whatsoever.
Sort of broken clock.
Exactly.
Verbal diarrhea guarantees, something's going to happen.
Yeah. So Dinesh D'Souza in 2012 made this documentary saying that if Obama was elected, it would be the end of America. And I thought he was insane for saying that as an 11.
Holy fuck!
Voice makes me cast disinterested at 5th level.
Oh, this man, of course he looks up to Dinesh D'Souza. Of course he's referencing the Mule movie. He's going there. He's literally making an ass of himself. That's crazy.
7-year-old. And looking at what happened, I don't think he was wrong because Obama elected in 2012. What happens immediately after it? Wokeness, because Obama was appointing all of these
Also, just Dinesh D'Souza, just a message for you, because I know you might, in fact, name search and find this somehow. You really should have named the movie 2000 Asses. You know, really conveys the same message, and also I think a lot more people would have watched your movie. It's all about advertising, okay? 2000 Asses would have at least gotten more seats in the theater. It's all I'm saying. You know, people like asses. People don't like mules.
People to positions of power. And I think Obama precipitated this weird chain of events. It's incredibly paradoxical that it created wokeness. I can explain that if you like, but I think you asked me a question, so I'm going to answer the question.
Fucking pronouns!
And The model that I study the most, I got from first David Hackett Fisher, who wrote a book called The Great Wave, which I've recommended to you. It's one of my top recommendations to you. And it's a history of inflation for the last 1,000 years of Western history. And what it looks at is that you can correlate inflation with revolutions pretty closely. And there's especially certain types of inflation.
Yeah, largely because bad economic times tend to lead towards revolution because people, in fact, rely on money to procure goods and services. You know, that you need those things to get by in society. So yeah, harder economic circumstances are more prone to revolution. Yes.
That are going to have revolutions, where you have these cycles of inflation and deflation that each last something a little bit over a century. And he wrote in the 1989, I think, something like that. That's when the Great Wave came out. He said that America would have a crisis like, and these will be the examples I keep returning back to because they're the parallels I'm drawing from. And to be clear, and this is a conversation I've had with many friends recently, I don't think we'll have a world war. I don't think we'll have nuclear war. I think when people hear war, they think it's a zombie movie. The reality, and this is the thing I said in Timcast, is most of you.
Oh, that's right. He also went on Tim Pool. You know, if you guys are ever like, why are you spending so much time on this man? It's because he's absolutely insane. And for some reason, people like listen to him and like take his ideas into account and then mainstream them. Like this guy is, again, someone that is retweeted by like Elon Musk. This guy is in the circle around Peter Thiel. Like, dude has a weird amount of clout. You know, not to tip my hand for future segments too much or anything, but there's literally a here. This is where I found this. Okay, so there's a segment here explaining sex and power in history, and I clicked on this, and then I was kind of curious. I was like, wait, what is going on here? And I followed the rabbit hole down a little bit farther, and what I found was that there is in fact a like organization called America's Future, and it seems to be some kind of like I'm just gonna say like money sink or funnel of some kind that exists to funnel money to various content creators. Literally, one of the most popular videos on the channel is the rise and fall and rise of America, on which Rudyard Lynch guests from about 2 years ago. 1 year ago, they did a national security and population decline with those two fucking weirdos who talk about birth rates all the time and go to like the birth rate conventions and are insanely wealthy. And so they get a bunch of like fluff pieces written about them in all the mainstream media outlets. Yeah, this organization is doing something to, align all these people and get them all together. So, you know, it's just an interesting little thing. America's Future series. And, you know, you look into it a little bit and it's a nonpartisan think tank that only works with conservatives. That's crazy. Recent speakers, Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson. That's so interesting. David Hamilton, founder and CEO of America's Future series. That's weird. Who's this David Hamilton fellow? Let's just take a look here. We're a non-political speaker series founded with support from Ross Perot Jr., T. Boone Pickens, which does not sound like a real name, Randall Stephenson, and others wanting a forum for civil discussions on issues impacting U.S. global competitiveness and national security. And, you know, you scroll down here and it's just kind of some interesting stuff here. Let's meet the team. Oh, look at that. We got a bunch of folks here, you know, just a bunch of guys and gals, maybe a couple non-binary pals, but I also just wanted to take a quick look here. Oh, the sponsors. Just sponsors. Oh, Boeing. We got Viastat. That's so interesting. Anyway, it's pretty interesting. Do we have any? Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like a kind of a shady umbrella organization that is funneling, conservative corporate money into folks like Rudyard, and of course boosting their profile. Because part of the reason people put together YouTube channels like this channel only has 1,450 subscribers. This is a tiny channel, right? But ultimately, you look at it, and it's basically making a bunch of arguments about how capital should be deployed. This is a channel, for better and worse, for mostly worse, that rich assholes pay attention to. Some of these are just nuts. Gaming, cyber, and dual use tech. Sandbox to the front lines, driving mission impact with emerging tech. This is all about how do we create a pipeline to weaponize children. It's interesting if you are, I don't know, concerned about the movings of the world behind folks like Rudyard. So I don't talk about these people just because it's funny to make fun of this guy. There's a reason that we talk about him, and it's because unfortunately he's involved with relatively powerful people through initiatives like the American Series Initiative, America's Future Series. My bad.
Will keep working your jobs. You'll keep.
Also, wait. If you're enjoying this, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. My editor keeps telling me I need to do it earlier in the video. This is it. I'm doing it early. We're only 13 minutes into this. Like, comment, and subscribe. Do the things that help the show, you silly little billies. I've been enjoying I've been enjoying some content that's shown up in my feed and just wanted to poke my head in and say hi. I'm too soft to stick around for long, but trans rights are human rights, and play Yu-Gi-Oh. Hell yeah, play Yu-Gi-Oh. Summon Exodia, the sexy one. Let's go. Let's go.
Taking care of your kids. You'll stay watching Netflix. Our YouTube channels will probably still be around. So if you go to Egypt or Sudan or Ukraine or a lot of war zones, life just keeps going. I like to joke, we are a dystopia where you're still expected to go to your job and pay your bills. Because the thing with most dystopias is they get so bad that mundanity stops. No one cares about paying their bills in 1984. No one cares about paying their bills in Brave New World.
Yeah. You're pointing out something that is easy to forget, even when you think about the Great Depression, right?
Yeah.
Which is, okay, so you have 25 pushing 30% unemployment at its depth.
The sexy one would be XXXodia. Yeah.
But that still means the
I don't know, this isn't the big revelation that life goes on in a war zone. If you're being occupied, life goes on. If you're being invaded, life goes on until, it stops.
overwhelming majority of people were employed.
Yes.
And people even made wealth and built fortunes and things got invented. Like the society.
Yeah, it's true. There were war profiteers. You're nailing it, Dad. Saving America.
Society broke down quite a bit, but most of it was still functioning.
I'm also glad you picked the Great Depression because it teases out a point I like to say, but no one brings the conversation in this way. Where whenever I talk about war, people think World War II because World War II is the only mental register we have for war. World War II, though, is...
Well, I mean, it's the last really big one. It's not the only mental register people have for war. It's just, it's the last really big one.
It's a very strange war historically, where if you look at most wars in history, and I'm going to use the 100 Years' War and the 30 Years' War, which are two conflicts which I use as parallels for our current conflict, both of those countries, so frame of reference, I forget, no one knows history. 100 Years' War was England versus France for over a century in the 1300s. 30 Years' War was everyone in Europe, except for a few countries, basically doing Marvel Smash in Central Europe. So when a kid gets a Marvel toy box with Iron Man and Spider-Man and those people, and then they just throw each other in a playpen, that was what the Swedes and the Spanish and the French and the Austrians were doing in Central Europe.
And the time frame for the 30 Years' War?
1618, 1648. It's one of those few wars that actually does fit the name. Like 100 Years' War is like 115 years. It's actually literally just 30 years.
One of the things that, and I don't know I think we've talked about this a little bit Martin Gurry, who's been on the show and who's a friend.
I'm sorry, why did he bring up like the war that like followed like the systemic failures and the Reformation within the Holy Roman Empire? Like what purpose did that serve exactly? Like, oh, here are two wars people don't talk about. Like, there are a lot of wars people don't talk about. What do you like? Also, like the countries he listed in like, I'm so baffled by this. I'm sorry. Like, all right. Like if you're talking about like the conflict between Protestants and Catholics, like that the 30 Years' War is what spawned that, really. Like it's what kicked that into high gear within Europe. And like, you know, you got the Habsburgs with their jaws, you know, going at it. But like there are a lot of other wars to talk about. I feel stupid, but like it that didn't go anywhere.
Has a book, the Revolt of the Public, and one of the things he talks about is that we're in a fifth wave of information, as he puts it, and that it, you know, being the internet, and that its level of disruption we still don't fully appreciate. But maybe the best corollary is the printing press.
Yeah,
and he lays the 30 Years' War at the foot of the printing press and the rise of Protestantism that follows from that. Yeah. Is that how you understand sort of? I know these are kind of big meta narratives, but I mean, how do you think about it?
I agree with that, but that's not the point I'm trying to make.
Sure.
I've talked about that in a previous video, the printing press versus the internet. That's a botology point too. And so 30 Years' War, 100 Years' War,
aside,
all the countries involved were
okay. He got back to it.
If you watch History Trivia, you will get recommended channels like his. Serious issue.
I mean, it is a serious issue, right? Like, this is why you need to teach people critical thinking skills, because if you're not paying attention and you just listen to this guy idly...
Rudyard likes to act smart, but might I present to you he dumb.
But like, that's the thing. If you're just listening idly and you're not actively engaging with the content he's putting out there and just assume he absolutely knows what he's talking about, like, that's a huge problem. That represents a huge systemic failure that then leads you to conservatism, right? Like, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Very weak. And England, France, all the countries in the 30 Years' War, these were all countries where if they had two bad winters, they'd have a civil war. And the thing with these historic periods of crisis, and the example...
I mean, I'm just going to throw this out there. If we had two bad winters in a row, it would also absolutely screw us. We still need to grow food, man.
I get from both The Great Wave by David Hackett Fisher and Peter Turchin's work is that these are crises where countries normally both fight an external war and an internal war at the same time, because every country in the global equilibrium is weak. And with those wars, the main aim of the war was to weaken the social fabric of the other country's society so they experience social collapse. The world wars are very rare historically, and that the world wars are these incredibly strong countries just fighting to the death. And that happens very infrequently over history. A previous example being the Punic Wars. But it's very rare to have a society, and this is the thing we forget all the time, where the state is strong enough to wage total war. It happens for less than 10% of human history, or human civilization. And so with the wars we're looking at now, I don't think America could have a draft, for example, because we just there's no reason to die for the government. Young men would die to destroy the government. They wouldn't die for the government. And that's also more of a normal historic thing. Normally, the king is this person that
the goal of a fight is to win. I am very intelligent.
There's this whole leftist theory that nationalism is recent. That's actually a lie. We've had nationalism for thousands of years, but the degree of nationalism you saw after the Industrial Revolution is historically very high.
No, nation states are specific things. Nation states are a relatively new socio-political invention of humanity. The concept of what a state or a nation was very different.
Rare for people to try and conquer each other in war. Rudyard Lynch, master tactician.
It really is. I'm dying here a little bit, guys. Like, nation states are not the same thing as, a kingdom that existed during, like, the medieval times. Like, these are two fundamentally different things. A nation state is an entirely different concept that he is just but he's just refusing to engage with that distinction. I don't know if he ever learned that distinction. I'm a little bit unsure here.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube and swishy streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, being, plenty more.